In the fast-moving world of IT, the financial stakes for network engineers have literally never been higher. If you're mapping out your professional roadmap for 2026, the difference between just standing still and strategically upskilling is tens of thousands of dollars a year. Today, we're using this explainer to unpack the exact landscape of this career path based on the latest market data. And let me tell you, the numbers we're looking at, they're a massive wake-up call for absolutely anyone in the industry.
Okay, let's dive into this. Right now, if you look at the US job market, $80,000 is the standard baseline salary you're going to see for a traditional networking generalist. Now, it's a respectable number, for sure, but in the context of where enterprise tech is aggressively heading by 2026, it really represents a professional plateau. If you only know the traditional ropes, the basic manual configurations we've all relied on for a decade, well, this $80,000 mark is exactly where your earning potential hits a very hard, very real ceiling. The divide in the industry right now is completely stark. You've got the traditional generalist on one side and the automation specialist on the other. But how do you actually cross that chasm? Well, it's all about the bridge you build between the two. You have to take those rock-solid networking fundamentals, your deep understanding of routing, switching, and subnets, which are the absolute building blocks of a network, and fuse them with modern automation skills. I'm talking specifically about learning infrastructure as code tools and languages like Python and Ansible. You aren't just manually configuring a single switch via command line anymore. No, you're writing scripts that can accurately configure 50 switches in 5 seconds flat.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because this is where the absolute payoff happens. $140,000. By adding those specific automation skills to your baseline networking knowledge, you instantly transform from a generalist into a highly sought-after specialist. That is a staggering $60,000 leap in market value for the 2026 job market. I mean, employers are throwing a massive premium at professionals who can script and automate. Why? Precisely because it saves the company countless hours of manual labor and, crucially, prevents those catastrophic human errors that take entire businesses offline. Section 1. Beyond the on-prem router.
So what exactly justifies that much higher tier of pay? Well, it requires us to look far beyond the traditional reality of this job. The modern network engineer is no longer just the person sitting in a freezing cold server room plugging in Cat6 cables and troubleshooting local firewalls. The fundamental nature of the role has completely evolved. Let's strip away all the complex corporate jargon for a second and look at this modern definition in plain English. A network engineer today is responsible for designing, building, and maintaining the infrastructure that lets data move between devices, locations, and the cloud. That's it. It's entirely about the reliable, secure, and instantaneous movement of data. Whether that data is an internal company email, a massive database migration, or a mission-critical live video feed, your job is to build and protect the digital highway system that makes it all possible.
But here's the catch. Those digital highways, they don't just exist in one city or one building anymore. We're living in what we call the hybrid necessity. The days of simply managing one localized, neatly contained network environment are completely over. You can't just be the undisputed master of a single office building's physical network and expect to thrive in 2026. Businesses are scattered, data is decentralized, and your technical skill set absolutely has to reflect that massive geographical and virtual spread. And this brilliantly illustrates the new normal you have to master. We're talking AWS Virtual Private Clouds, which are essentially secure, isolated private networks hosted in the public cloud, alongside Azure Virtual Networks and traditional on-premises data centers. Employers today expect their top-tier engineers to be able to seamlessly troubleshoot across all these completely disparate environments simultaneously. You might be tracing a packet drop that starts in a physical server in Chicago, travels through a complex Azure cloud network, and ends up in an AWS database. You have to navigate all of those environments fluently to justify that $140,000 salary.
Now hold on a second. Stop right there. I know exactly what you might be thinking. With all this talk about heavy automation, scripting, and cloud management, is AI replacing this job entirely? It's the absolute elephant in the room. Whenever we talk about a roadmap looking toward 2026, the anxiety around artificial intelligence taking over highly technical IT roles is incredibly loud. So let's tackle this fear head-on.
Section 2. The AI Reality Check. If you're going to invest your valuable time in learning Python, Ansible, and complex hybrid cloud routing, you need to know with absolute certainty that a generative AI bot isn't going to render your new skill set obsolete by the time you finish your exams, right? To get that certainty, we need to look objectively at the future of this role using hard, verified data, not internet rumors or social media hype. We're turning to the 2026 Gartner forecast. Gartner is one of the most respected, data-driven voices in enterprise technology research. They've specifically tracked enterprise network automation trends to see exactly how much of a human engineer's daily workload is actually being handed over to machines and algorithms over the next couple of years. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual breakdown of these numbers. By 2026, Gartner forecasts that 30% of enterprises will automate more than half of their network activities. But look closely at the 70% figure, the much bigger piece of that pie. A massive 70% of network activities will still strictly require human expertise. Think about what that really means for the trajectory of this career. Despite all the sensational headlines, the vast majority of network engineering still heavily demands a living, breathing human being who can understand business context, strategize across platforms, and make complex architectural decisions that AI simply cannot handle safely.
But we certainly can't ignore that 30% shift toward automation. Instead of seeing it as a threat to your livelihood, you really need to view it as the 30% opportunity. The enterprises that are automating more than half their tasks aren't destroying IT jobs, they are rapidly evolving them. The daily work is shifting away from manually typing tedious, repetitive commands into a terminal and moving toward thinking critically about how to make the entire network smarter, faster, and more self-healing.
So, the crucial point is this. Automation does not replace the engineer. It creates brand new, highly lucrative demand for a different kind of engineer. Companies desperately need humans who can actually design these intricate automation systems and manage this complex new hybrid infrastructure. The AI tools and the Python scripts can only execute what they are explicitly told to do. They need a $140,000 specialist to build the deployment pipelines, set the security rules, and meticulously govern the systems to ensure an automated script doesn't accidentally cause a catastrophic company-wide network outage. The landscape for 2026 is incredibly clear. You need to upskill into automation, embrace the reality of the hybrid cloud, and position yourself as the strategic architect of these new systems rather than just a manual operator. But that brings us to the ultimate practical question. If you're starting this journey right now, how do you actually prove to employers that you have these skills? What is the one core credential nearly every high-paying job posting still asks for as a baseline? Well, we're going to unpack the exact certification path you need to hit that specialist salary tier. Keep that provocative question in mind, because discovering the answer is exactly where your next step begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to Part 2 of our Explainer series on the 2026 Network Engineer Roadmap. We're jumping right in today. If you were with us for Part 1, you know we're tracking exactly how the IT landscape is shifting. Well, today is all about demystifying the sometimes overwhelming world of IT certifications, specifically for the US market. We're going to map out the exact credentials you need and the exact order you need to stack them to maximize your career trajectory and, of course, your salary. Okay, let's anchor back to a critical takeaway from Part 1. Remember this, automation isn't replacing the network engineer, it's replacing the manual network engineer. AI and automation are completely changing the game right now. The days of just memorizing syntax and manually configuring routers one by one, those are fading fast. Because the environment is adapting, your certification path has to adapt right alongside it. So here is our roadmap for today. First, the automation reality. Second, the Cisco certification pipeline. Third, the cloud networking shift. And finally, what comes next for your career. Section 1. The automation reality. Let's see how this builds our foundation. The crucial point here is that to truly thrive in this automated landscape, you can't just randomly collect certifications like trading cards and hope for the best. You need a highly tactical, sequential career roadmap. Every single credential requires hundreds of hours of your time and hundreds of your hard-earned dollars. So you need to know for sure there's a clear, quantifiable return on your investment. You need absolute proof that passing an exam will actually move the needle for your career. Which brings us to Section 2, the Cisco certification pipeline. This brilliantly illustrates the gold standard, traditional climb up the networking ladder. It's the blueprint that has guided professionals for decades. You start with the optional CompTIA Network Plus at the base, move up to the CCNA, push forward to the CCNP, and finally, for those aiming for the very top, you reach the summit at the CCIE. Let's break down exactly what each of these steps means for you in 2026. Step 1 is the CompTIA Network Plus. Now, actually, scratch that. Let's call it an optional Step 1. If you're starting from absolute zero, meaning you barely even know what an IP address is, this is your vendor-neutral base camp. It doesn't get bogged down in Cisco-specific gear. Instead, it teaches you the universal language of networking. But listen, if you already have some help desk experience or a basic grasp of IT, you can usually just bypass this completely. Because the true starting line, the real gatekeeper, that's the CCNA. Let me be incredibly clear on this. This is the undisputed primary entry credential in the industry. When HR departments are scanning resumes for junior network engineers, the CCNA is the absolute baseline filter they use. It proves you understand how to route and switch and that you actually know your way around a command line. And let's talk about why this matters to your wallet. In the US market right now, grabbing that CCNA generally commands a starting salary somewhere between $45,000 and $65,000 a year. That's your baseline entry. It's your foot in the door, giving you a seat at the table so you can start getting paid to gain real-world, hands-on experience. Plus, Cisco knows the landscape is shifting rapidly. They see the automation reality we just talked about. That's exactly why the recent 2024 CCNA update directly baked generative AI, cloud networking management, and automation right into the exam. They're making absolutely sure that even at the associate level, you are learning the framework of the future, not just legacy systems. So once you conquer the CCNA and spend a few years getting some dirt under your fingernails, the logical next step up the mountain is the CCNP. This is where you separate yourself from the pack. It proves you've moved way beyond the basics and can comfortably handle complex, enterprise-level environments with deep specialization. And the financial ROI for making that jump? It is massive. Nailing your CCNP effectively adds a $20,000 to $40,000 bump to your salary ceiling. You're moving straight from a junior role into a solid, mid-level, or senior engineering position where you're actively designing critical infrastructure. When you look at this comparison, the jump is pretty stark. You go from that respectable entry-level wage of $45,000 to $65,000, up to an incredibly impressive average sitting right around $112,000 to $115,000 in the US. That is a life-changing leap, and it literally reflects the massive premium enterprise companies place on proven professional-level networking skills. Finally, for those who are incredibly dedicated and want to reach the absolute summit, there's the CCIE. It is a grueling, notoriously difficult certification. But because of that intense difficulty, it remains the undisputed gold standard credential for senior, high-paying architectural positions. When you have a CCIE, you are recognized globally as a true master of your craft. All right, Section 3, the cloud networking shift. Take a breath because this is where the game gets completely rewritten. Here is the hard truth for 2026. Climbing that traditional Cisco mountain alone is just no longer enough to guarantee a bulletproof career. As corporate cloud adoption relentlessly accelerates, we are seeing a massive tectonic shift in what employers actually demand. You can't just be the on-premise router and switch person anymore. You have to discover and conquer a whole new peak right alongside your Cisco knowledge. Today, network engineers are fully expected to understand how traffic flows not just in a physical data center, but within virtual private clouds. You need to be looking very closely at credentials like the AWS Certified Advanced Networking Specialty or the Microsoft Azure Network Engineer Associate. Employers are desperately looking for hybrid engineers, people who can seamlessly and securely bridge the physical branch office all the way up into the cloud. But please, do not misunderstand what this means. If you take away anything today, write this core truth down. Cloud certs are additions, not replacements for your core Cisco fundamentals. You absolutely cannot skip the CCNA, jump straight to an AWS networking cert, and expect to know how networks actually function under the hood. The cloud is literally just someone else's computer network. You still need to know how networking works to manipulate it. These cloud certs just stack right on top. Finally, Section 4, what comes next? You know the pipeline, you understand the vital importance of the CCNA and CCNP, and you're well aware of the shift toward cloud networking. But how do we turn this roadmap into maximum revenue for your career? That is exactly what we are going to tackle in the next installment. In Part 3 of this Explainer series, we're breaking down your realistic, year-by-year timeline, and even more importantly, we're going to reveal exactly which of these 3 modern specializations, security, automation, or cloud, actually pays the absolute most in today's market. So, as the traditional network perimeter completely dissolves, ask yourself, will you adapt to secure the cloud, script its automation, or be left behind managing legacy cables? Think about that. keep grinding, and I will see you in part 3.